This show is sponsored by Mighty Capital, the go-to venture capital firm for product-first companies like Airbnb and Amplitude. Learn why they are dubbed the best value for the dollar invested at mighty.capital. I'm SC Moadi, founder and chair of Products That Count, a 501c3 nonprofit engaging over 500,000 product managers. Our mission is simple: help you build great products through groundbreaking research, prestigious awards, and top-notch programming like this award-winning Top 1% podcast. Whether you're aiming to boost your career or turn your product team into a competitive advantage, this is your gateway. Visit productsthatcount.org and begin your product leadership journey. This particular series is hosted by one of the first chief product officers in the world, Renee Niemi, and each episode is a masterclass in product leadership. Renee, over to you.
Hello, today I have with us Jim Denney. He is the Chief Product Officer of Direct to Consumer at NBCUniversal. Jim, super excited to be chatting with you today. We're really looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to start by saying congratulations on being a finalist for the top CPO of 2024. And how does it feel?
Renee, thanks for having me. It feels great. I'm honored by the opportunity and honored that I'm in the list. So it's great.
Yeah, well, it's well deserved, and I think whoever's listening in is going to learn very quickly why that is. Before we dive in, because I have a whole bunch of stuff I want to explore with you, why don't we just start 60 seconds or less? Tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about the specific part of NBCUniversal that you are responsible for, and the type of products you bring to market.
Sure. So as you said, I'm the CPO of Comcast NBCU's direct-to-consumer and global streaming division. That actually indicates kind of two different or two parts of the organization. Direct-to-consumer is about it involves the products that we bring to market directly to consumer, and global streaming is kind of a subset of that, but it spans beyond NBCUniversal and Comcast, including our Sky properties. So it means that I'm responsible for the product vision and strategy for products like Fandango, Rotten Tomatoes, NBC Sports. As part of global streaming, that includes Sky now in the Sky markets as well, including Germany and Italy and the UK. And then, as a significant growth engine for the company, I spend much of my time on Peacock. So I spend a lot of time on Peacock, and Peacock, as you know, is NBCU's SVOD and live streaming service. It's based on the core content offerings of bringing together live movies right from the theater, next day shows from NBC and Bravo. Originals, a really robust library offering. So it's a very robust content offering overall. And it's been the fastest growing streaming service in the US for the last 2 years. So very proud of what we've accomplished so far.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I've been watching the rise of the Peacock. I'm old enough that I remember when NBC would sign on with the Peacock and sign off every night with the Peacock. So I love the branding as well. Very exciting products to be working on, and very relatable, obviously, to many of us.
It is.
So I would love to kind of, dig in to get to know you a little bit better. And, sometimes the best way to get to know somebody is to know a little bit about their history and how they came into the role that they're in. Tell me about, well, we're all product leaders, so which means most of us starting off running product at a worker level. Tell me about a product, either as a product manager or as a product leader, that was like really defining for you and had a material impact on and how you think about things today.
I'll use two examples within that one previous and one more recent. So one of the products I was lucky enough to work on was TiVo before this. I joined a few years after
Another
TiVo
iconic,
began.
by the way.
Yes, very much. It was a great opportunity. If you think about TiVo, so having the opportunity to work on a device and a service and a brand that impacted the way people consume media so much was certainly a great opportunity. Um, and in terms of an accomplishment, I was particularly proud of in that time. If you think about, TiVo is well known to be the DVR, right? Time shifting of television. It was a great invention. But one of the other things we did many years ago was, at the time we called it hybrid television, the creation of hybrid television. But it was bringing together traditional pay TV or over-the-air distribution of content and streaming. So we were one of the first, if not the first, platform to bring together Netflix, Amazon, and your pay TV subscription at the same time. And as such, we were dealing with things like, how do I search across multiple services? How do I make sense of bringing in content from multiple catalogs and make that feel whole? And it was great. It was a breakthrough consumer proposition, and it was a great experience. So I greatly appreciated having the opportunity to work on it and have that kind of impact. And got an Emmy out of the deal as well. So that was an okay.
Oh my gosh, where is it? Why is it not on your shelf?
It is safely at home. So
congratulations
yeah,
on that.
it was fun. It was fun.
Almost as good as being a top CPO.
Almost, not quite. There's another one, if you want to spend a little bit of time on it. I would say more recently, at my time at NBC, the Olympics is actually it's not a product per se, but it really is kind of, it tells a story of the arc of the work that we've been doing here at Peacock. When I joined NBCU, about 2 months after I joined was the Tokyo Olympics. It was supposed to be the 2020 Olympics, done in 2021 with no audience, if you remember. Yes. And if you look at the evolution of this, when we did Tokyo, we had what I think was a pretty robust navigation and discovery paradigm in place. But in that time, we didn't put all the content on Peacock. We put some on Peacock, and we distributed across some of our other brands as well. And the experience was great, but with missing content, you missed the total consumer experience. So Beijing, ironically, even though Olympics are supposed to be 2 years apart, Beijing was about 9 months later. So for Beijing, we had the same discovery mechanisms, but we put made most of the events available on Peacock. And at the same time, we had it allowed us to make Peacock the streaming destination for the Olympics. It was at the same time as NBC had the Super Bowl, so we were actually able to combine the Super Bowl and the Olympics at the same time. That was a very busy Sunday night, as you might imagine.
Oh my goodness!
But it was great, and it was highly rated. The Olympics production ended up getting awards. Like Beijing really kind of brought together what we think the best of the content and the experience could be. And then Paris comes up in 2 months from now, so I feel like I'm ripping through Olympics as we go through this. But like Paris, I think personally, from a product standpoint, Paris is set to be a fantastic experience. So we learned, and it's amazing how much prep goes into each Olympics, by the way, and multiple dimensions. But we learned from both Tokyo and Beijing what was working, what wasn't. This year we're developing about 13 new features to enhance the experience. We're incorporating what we learned in the past events, bringing basically every single event available on the platform now, including the 329 medal events. So the story here is about like pulling together all the learnings and making the product even better. With two of the products standing out, one bringing together multi-view, So the ability to watch multiple streams at the same time, and we're treating it as a discovery mechanism. So like the ability to have multi views going on at the same time. So if you're just sitting down to watch the Olympics, you can get a quick overview of what's going on, and we'll have editorial in each of the streams that are going on simultaneously as well. And then another feature called live action. So for live action, we'll use it in a couple different ways, and this is interesting, especially given my TiVo background. Being able to have product that where we have to work with the production crew as well. So in live action, what will happen is during a live stream, if the broadcast is going to, or if a given channel is going to cut away from, say, swimming to gymnastics or vice versa, we'll give the user the ability to stay with the event that's on. So if you're watching gymnastics and they're about to cut away from swimming and you want to keep watching gymnastics, we'll put up a prompt and we'll work with the production crew so that the announcers will acknowledge and say, hey, if you want to stay with swimming, like, you just hit the button in front of you, or if you're watching on Peacock. And I think the ability to give the user the control, it's again kind of goes back to some of the TiVo themes. Giving the user the ability to control their experiences is hugely important. So very proud of all those accomplishments, and the ability for people to use technology to really entertain themselves much better.
Yeah, well, you should be proud. It strikes me about the Olympics in particular is the massive amount of content, but just the consumer need of and desire of actually wanting to do certain deep dives, depending on their interests and what they follow. And this feels like it's impacting not only your business but also the live broadcast business as well. Like the two worlds are kind of colliding at some level in just a beautiful experience.
For sure. And one of the things that we've talked about, you mentioned how much content there is. Some of the problems we think we have to solve or help solve is we need to be able to satisfy both the avid Olympics watcher and the casual watcher. So if you want to just tune into something, and this is actually what the evening broadcast tends to do, it's a great way to catch up on stories of the day, and it's very rich. But if you're a huge fan of gymnastics or a huge fan of especially one of the other many sports involved in the Olympics, how do we allow you to how do we put that in front of you? How do we allow you to dig into the depth that you want? So it's and you can only do that on digital platforms. So I think it's a great opportunity to highlight both the technology and the experience.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And as I listen to you tell both of these stories, TiVo as well as streaming the Olympics, it strikes me on how groundbreaking and how much innovation you've seen and driven in your career, which is just to be applauded. Quick question for you. When you are in high content areas, and I want to say like both TiVo and NBC, what you're doing at NBC would qualify for this. Uh, and forgive me for just diving right into AI, but I have to imagine that the use of AI has to play a pretty big role.
It is interesting, and as we all know, AI is evolving rapidly. It's interesting being within NBC and thinking about AI because there's so many considerations for how it's used. Within our experience, I think of AI right now about how do we use it in terms of recommendations. Like how do we make better recommendations? How do we get the right content in front of the user in the right way? So it certainly has a role, and I think we all as an industry will be looking at what the proper role of AI is going to be.
Yeah, interesting. Can't wait to have that conversation with you maybe at a later date. So, talk to me about your role as it relates to customers, because I have to imagine you think about customers through multiple different lenses, and your team thinks about like like walk me through how you frame this idea of customer.
Yeah, I think as a product leader, you always have to put the customer first. So and within my organization, different people have different customers. So especially if you think about consumer products, you think about the end user, right? The person using the product, using Peacock, using Fandango or Rotten Tomatoes, and that is a primary consideration. Like how do we put ourselves in the role of the customer and empathize with how they think and what they're trying to solve at any given time. But especially when you're running a platform, your customers can take many different forms, right? Like your customer could be an operations person, the person running Multiview, right? How do they have to run it? How many people does it take? How complicated is it? How do I build the tools and the control surfaces to make this easy? Your customer could be somebody in marketing or the different parts of the business. What are they trying to achieve? Like, what are we trying to achieve as a whole entity? So I think the customer can vary depending on what problem you're trying to solve and what dimension of the problem you're trying to solve. So at the end of the day, from a straight consumer standpoint, if you put the consumer lens on this, we build products that entertain customers. Like that's what we do, right? Which means we have to think about, when we think about navigation and discovery, how do you make sure that doesn't come off as work, right? How do you make it so that discovery itself can be a compelling experience and that it is part of the overall experience? How do you expand the viewing experience? Can you expand the viewing experience to complement stories, to incorporate the consumer? So we really do try to put the consumer first in everything that we think about. And as a product leader, I stress this to my team.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you do. I how does that manifest itself? So what I mean by that is, end user is such a broad term.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know that you're actually doing right by the customer? Like, how do you verify that and frame that internally?
I think it's multifaceted. So one, we do a lot of research. So we'll do usability research. We'll do kind of broad research on what people consider when they are thinking about entertainment services. We will verify. Once we get designs in place, we'll go back and do additional usability studies to see how people respond to it. And then we use a lot of data. We use experimentation. Pretty extensively. So we want to put different concepts in front of the user, see how it affects their viewing pattern, right? See how it affects how they use the product, and measure against that. So we want to be able to make sure that we understand how making, even whether they're little changes or large changes, how that ultimately affects the way the user uses the product. And so we'll use a lot of data to check our assumptions.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I think the only other comment I'd make about users and thinking about customers is, you can ask customers a lot, right? Like you can prompt them for what their underlying needs are and whether they like things or don't like things. One of the things that you have to be able to do as a product leader is you have to listen, but you also have to be able to show them what's possible, because they don't know what's possible.
Right.
And I think this is a practice across several disciplines, but I think the product manager and the product leader has to think about this even more. Like, a lot of the things we're working on don't exist. So consumers don't have really the context for like, is it going to be good or is it going to be bad? So we have to lead and show people what's possible. So and be ready to have things that succeed and have things that fail and learn from the failures. So I think you have to be able to incorporate all those learnings.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You and I were chatting earlier about this role that intuition plays in product management, and to your point, you have to take context, right? You have to take multiple data context in order to make a decision to deliver against the customers. That balance between art and science, right?
For sure, it is art and science, and we're really focusing a lot on the experience part of this.
Right.
The other thing about this is you're running a business, so like, what's the impact that you have on the business, and how does it grow or how does it not grow? So this is actually the beauty of product management, in my opinion, is like you get to be involved in so many different dimensions of a business. And we might expand on this in a little bit, but it really is, it is a beauty of the position.
Well, with that as a lead in, tell me about a defining moment when you knew you had chosen the right career.
Yeah, well, that's always a good one. For product management in particular, and I've been a product leader for a long time, product manager for a long time. I do think that that TiVo was one of my, while I felt like I was in the right position, I loved the jobs that I had before TiVo, and I was a product manager for years before I joined TiVo. When I came into TiVo soon after I joined, I had the ability to, or the responsibility to be involved in the UI experience as much as the design team would let me. The hardware design, like what we could do with it, the back end services that powered the design, powered the front end design. And you got down to things like, what's the texture on the remote control, and working with the hardware designers and the product designers dealing with that. I have a mechanical engineering degree, right? I came from someplace where I like to build, even if I'm not building it, and that was the ability to touch all those aspects of the product really solidified for me that like product management was a great career choice for me. Like incorporating my interest in building with all these other dimensions in which I could build, plus as we were just talking about, like the perfect intersection of like business interests and technology, and for me, a lot of my career has been in consumer oriented products. So like, how do you touch consumers? I think, fortunately for me, every one of my jobs has really, I've been able to capitalize on some dimension of that. But I think TiVo was the first time it kind of solidified all those dimensions of that, those characteristics of the opportunity.
Yeah, so. Yeah, and for leaders like you, and candidly, I would fall in this similar category where, I'm not sure I would have been as successful if I wasn't able to actually touch all the elements that product impact. And you really think about that whole 360 view, not just of the customer, not just of the user experience, but can it be built? Can it be supported? What happens, at 30 users versus 300,000 users versus 3 billion users, right? So just like all of those dimensions of how you think about it. And even this day and age, go to market's a big deal. Like I have to imagine as you think through, what you build at NBCU, like discovery and subscribers and getting more subscribers and how you think about that's got to be massive.
Yeah, it's certainly multifaceted for sure, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about for the customer. Like sometimes the customer is an internal customer, and one of the things we have to think about is like what tools are we building for the marketing team, for the growth team. Like you have people whose job it is to make sure it's all of our job to help grow the service and contribute to the user satisfaction, et cetera. But as a product team, we're building tools and working with our data team and the marketing teams on like, okay, what tools are needed? What tools will give the flexibility that we need or the narrowness that we need to comply with regulation? And so it really you really do touch all dimensions of the business. Customer care. I've got a team that deals with customer management. And we just had a review a little bit ago, and that team has to think about how am I shortening the time to resolution for the end customer, and at the same time they're thinking like, how do I build tools for the chat agents who are, who when people are interacting with humans on the other side, what are the tools I build for them?
Yeah.
And all of that is in support of how do you make happy customers, how to ultimately to grow the service, ultimately to be able to run the business that you're running at the same time. It is I do love the multidimensional problems that you have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say is the one kind of best practice, like when you think about all of your collective experience that you've been able to bring to the table that really separates not just you as a leader, but really turns your team into a competitive weapon?
I don't think there's any one thing in particular, right? As with many things, it's a collage of different practices. But a couple that I found have been very helpful for me. One, I have a saying, and I actually asked one of my product leaders the other day to help me. I was like, if you had what are the things that I've brought that you've thought have been very helpful? And I have a saying that I've repeated basically in the last 3 jobs I've been in. When 10 people own a problem, nobody owns the problem. And so I find that's especially applicable in large matrixed organizations. Like, who is responsible for this? So it forces you to think about empowerment. Like, how do you set things up so that people feel like they have control and and with empowerment goes accountability. So who's the person that, like, if something succeeds, we're going to celebrate, and if something fails, they are clear that they're taking a responsibility for this, for that success or failure. Not in a bad way, but like, in a way that's clear on like who's got the ball at any given time. So I think that's been one thing that has been very helpful for me over the years. I've been in several situations where I've come in and you asked who's in charge or who takes accountability. It's like, well, this person has this responsibility, but this person has this other. I'm like, can we just agree on somebody's got the ball, like somebody's got a point? So I think that's one practice that I've found very helpful. A different dimension that I started actually a couple of jobs ago, but I revisited after I joined NBCU. Is I send out a weekly email that I've called 3 things. When I first started my previous job, somebody gave me a hard time because they would say it's called 3 things, but there's always more than 3 things in there. So I over the years honed my skill in like picking 3 things. But it's basically, for me, it's a communication to my team of 3 things for the week that have impacted me. And I've kind of expanded it to reflect like different teams can contribute to it. But it's been very helpful. I've gotten a lot of good feedback, and like the intention for me was to keep my team attuned to like what's on my mind, like what are the things I'm working on, and the team. I've steadily expanded that to what's the team working on. So it's been a very helpful communication tool in just keeping a heartbeat on what's going on. And one thing that I've been very happy about is I've had different people say, hey, can I get that email? So now I send it to all of our leadership. all the direct-to-consumer leadership. I send it. I have another mailing list called Friends of Three Things, like just people who have asked to be on the list, and it's heartening, right? Like it's nice that people want to hear, and two, it's been a really good communication mechanism to kind of keep the team aware of some of the bigger things that are going on, and even the smaller things that are going on. So I found that to be effective.
Yeah, well, first of all, I like both of those. Clear accountability, but sounds like you have a communication superpower that's very helpful. And I for one think that should be best practice. I think that's a wonderful idea, and the mere fact that you've now had to expand to the Friends of Three Things list tells you that you're doing something right. So congrats for that.
Yeah.
Hopefully a few people listening here pick that up. I know I'll think about that for a minute. Excellent. Well, listen, our time has gone so fast. Unfortunately, I'm now on my last question before I let you go. But I would be remiss if we didn't have at least one quick conversation around the role of AI specific to the role of product management. So my question for you is the role of product management going to be replaced by a bot anytime soon?
Yeah, I definitely don't think so. I think even if you think about the conversation we were just having, product management is as you mentioned, is both an art and a science, right? Like there are a lot of different facets that you need to keep in mind, and a good part of this is about innovation. And it's not that AI can't be innovative and or can't help in the creative process from a product standpoint. So I picture it as a tool, but do I see AI, bots replacing product managers anytime soon? I think we're pretty safe, at least for a while. I think the importance of innovation and the art part of it, the human touch, and judgment is going to be important, and it won't be replaced. It won't be replaced anytime soon. I think it can be a very helpful tool in digesting data and digesting information and making sense of a lot of. As a product manager, as a product leader, you have a lot of input, a lot of inputs, I should say. And I think it can be a great tool to help digest information that's coming inbound, but I don't think it's going to replace it. So,
yeah, I have to say that I agree 100%. So, listen, great. Jim, it was such a great conversation. I really want to thank you for all of your insights, and again, congratulations on being a finalist in the top award. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Renee. I appreciate it.
This is SC Moadi again, founder and chair of Products That Count. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, be sure to leave us a review on your favorite platform, including Spotify and Apple. And please check out our other resources at productsthatcount.org. They're designed to accelerate your product career and make product the most important function in business. Until soon.